I went 11 minutes. I went 11 minutes. Bro, I can't even begin to tell you how frustrating that is. That's frustrating. Thank you for pointing it out. More than one person. Um, I know you just got here. I had a lot more people here, and they were following along. They were following along. Um, my See, there's people that were genuinely curious, probably that wanted to come in, and they didn't hear anything, and they just didn't even say anything. If I had multiple, like one, it's like if I saw Bart coming, I was like, okay, maybe it's just Bart because I was looking at it, it was connected, but I was muted on here for some reason. Stupidly, I don't know why I would ever come into to do a live stream and want to be muted, but for some reason it muted me. Um, I didn't even really go into too deep analysis, to be honest. I was just breaking down what was happening over today, Nicole. So I don't even know where to start now again, but we'll go with it. Um, so Nicole has a little bit stronger of an inner core than I thought it was going to at this point. Um, 984 pressure right now, 70 mile per hour tropical storm, so it's a bit stronger than I thought it was going to be at this point. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. At least it wasn't like a half hour. It's good that there's a lot of people in, or not a lot, but a decent amount of people in here, so I could have someone tell me more, or just more multiple people tell me. Um, but we had a solid burst of convection last night into today, and now we have a little bit of a waning period. But as Dmax takes off tonight, um, uh, the diurnal maximum period where convection is has been researched to pop off more at night. So that's going to take advantage of that probably a little bit, and we can see already we got some more development in terms of around the core of the system. A little bit more convection around the center of the system. We had a little bit of burst earlier here, kind of initiate that too. Um, it's taking a little bit of a west southwest jog right now, which is expected. That's not there's nothing new to that. We were expecting that, but I was looking at some of the hurricane models too, and it's going to be important if this gets into like I think we were from 60 to 100. I put the range at yesterday. I think we can safely put it more at 75 to 100 in terms of the floor to ceiling with this storm. I think it's pretty not I don't want to say safe. Nothing's ever safe because it could weaken some, but I think that's what we're looking at in terms of intensity wise. Um, Not looking at 140 mile per hour Cat 4. It's not on the table. The environment doesn't support that. But you know, it is stronger than I was expecting. But I was also, we pointed out last night on stream. We were looking at just from a general perspective. We were looking at tropical cyclone forecasting in general. The environment was pretty supportive of intensification, actually. So it was surprising based on what majority thought, but also at the same time, based on what we were looking at last night, it kind of made sense of what it's easy to say now, but it kind of makes sense now of how why I was able to intensify. We had 20 and a half degrees sea surface temperatures, along with, well, yeah, that's why 100's the ceiling. Like I'm not the I don't want to short myself, that I don't want to have to cut myself down for anything I don't have to. I've seen crazier stuff happen. I don't need to make a fork, like I don't need to cut down on a forecast, like I don't have to make, like I don't want to make it tougher on myself than I have to. So if I think 75 to 100, that's not a stupidly wide range, and also a fair enough just a fair enough range in general, I think, for based on where we are. Now, I wouldn't expect any rapid intensification to take place, but some slow, gradual intensification where maybe we rise 5-10 miles per hour in a 6 hour period, and then maybe we kind of pause intensification, and then maybe there's another period of that. Um, so I don't think this is going to be just a takeoff scenario. There's no that I struggle to see a scenario where this thing just takes off about 30-35 miles per hour in like a 12 to 18 hour period. I just don't think we're going to see that happen. And also, it should point out how much land interaction we see with the Bahamas and Grand Bahama Island. That will matter some. The Bahamas aren't going to deter it significantly. It's not going to break down the structure of the core. As you can see, it just still over. There's so much latent heat that's still left in the system's core. So it's not a stall like Dorian. So it's going to be able to still intensify, but how specifically the exact core, how long it stays over land interaction play a little small part. In general, it's not going to be significant, but a small part. This is just me looking at semantics and little details. But I don't think dry air is going to be a massive problem. There is dry air that's going to be working from, you can see it in the core here. There is dry air that's going to try to work in from this side, always from the south with this system. It's going to be the northeast side is not going to have a huge problem with dry air in this system. But if we take a look at moisture, you can see, right, this is where most of the dry air is. It's on the southern quadrant here, and we got a little bit works into the core here. Most of the dry air, notice plenty of moisture on the northern side, the northern shield of the storm. So we're not going to be worrying about dry air working in from that side with this system. And also, moisture is going to get extended out because this is where wind shear is blown from. So it's not exactly, it's not like this. It's not this part. But if we expanded the view. Sorry, we'll slide the GFS. Actually, I want to see what it does. Get here. Let's see at 500. You can see it start to get sheared off some this way. It's almost kind of anticyclonic. That's intriguing. That's intriguing a little bit, honestly. I don't know. Listen, based on the models, a lot of the models don't want to take this thing into like a Cat 2 range or even, approach that. Most of them are mid to low end Cat 1, but I don't know. Just based on how I forecast, not just what you look for in terms of tropical systems. I mean, that's a pretty good moisture bubble. We know it's going to be cut off. I don't know why that gets so small. This is going to get cut off a little bit on this southern side, but this is such a good moisture plume, even for a hybrid storm. A little bit of a hybrid storm, mainly tropical, but it's gonna be still partly cold core, so it's gonna be a little bit of a hybrid system. I don't know. It's gonna be warm sea surface temperatures too. Deep ocean heat content was more than supportive. We looked at that in one of the stream a couple days ago. I mean, look at that. I mean, those are still going to be working 28, 27 degree sea surface temperatures with supportive deep ocean heat content. This isn't just 27 with nothing to work with below the surface. There's pretty supportive deep ocean heat content values, meaning the isotherm below just the surface. How warm is the water below the surface? And I don't know. I don't know. The environment says even though there is some stronger wind shear. Remember we talked about wind shear is not the only thing that matters. It matters in what direction the wind shear is what direction the wind shear is moving. Is it working against the system or is it working with the flow? Remember we talked about this with Ian. There was a wind shear, but it was working with the flow. So basically all we were doing was, yes, we were just stretching out the moisture field, but that's really all. We weren't working against the system to displace the mid-level and the low-level center. We weren't doing that with Ian to a slight extent, but to the point where it wasn't gonna mess with it still intensifying, and that made a difference. We went from a low-end major hurricane to up to a borderline Category 5 hurricane. And honestly, if there wasn't this dry air saving us, it would have been a powerful Cat 5 hurricane. So the direction wind shear moves in the mid levels of the atmosphere is very in the upper levels and the low levels, because there's low level, mid level wind shear. It's not just one level of the atmosphere. The wind is not the same speed in every level of the atmosphere, as we know. Uh, so the direction it moves is important. It is very important. Now, once it gets farther north, then wind shear is going to displace that. And then until it gets a little baroclinic injection from the trough pulling this way, until it gets to that point, then it's going to get sheared off, and obviously it's going over land. And then that's where wind shear will take its toll on the system. But until then, it's not going to be a massive detriment. I think it will be in terms of pausing intensity and dry, and just in general. There's going to be some drier where there is some wind shear on this side of the system that's going to try to transport some dry air into the southern half. So there's going to be intrusions, not massive, but significant enough to deter it from strengthening at certain points over the next 48 hours before landfall. I mean, how strong does the GFS get here? Let's see, what was that originally? Looks like it's a little bit stronger, right? Some of those try to be 995. Looks like it's coming back to reality a little bit, down to 980 this run. Still haven't checked out to see what the rest of this run has done yet even. Let's take a look. That looks maybe a little bit stronger. Yep. Trough is not quite as progressive this time. So the trend, did it? Need more. It does look a little bit broader. Need more information. Not a significant change this run. Vorticity does look a little bit stretched out, but nothing major in the run to run trend. A little bit more stream interaction in this part, but nothing major. You can kind of see here. You can see the change, the run change here with Nicole too. We're doing just some live analysis. That's the only reason. I'm not talking super loud right now, but I'm trying to figure some stuff out here. This trough looks a little bit more broader. So maybe we'll push this a little bit. And that's a significant change, though. Yeah, so we are going to push this, but we don't have enough. We don't have enough of a southern fort to work with here on this run. That's too amplified. Too amplified. We don't have enough of a southern fort to work with on this run. I'll show here. You can see the difference on the P-type map. Not as much juice in this run, and tries to really amplify that. But there's not as much juice on this run. The southern fort. Possible I fell victim into seeing the latest run. It's possible. Regardless, this trough is going to bring in cold air, regardless of what happens. So there's that. It's not like I really fell victim. I said keep your expectations super low, just because of the time of the year. But what we say, the latest run is not the correct run. So we'll see how this develops. Still a lot of time to see how this works. With hoping my folks up here can maybe get into a snowstorm if they're lucky. If they're lucky, maybe they can get into a snowstorm. And I have to do something with the YouTube stream because otherwise it's gonna just not cooperate. No, go down. Or why does it have direct weather in my recommended? I swear to God. We are not watching direct weather. There we go. You never be a day where I'm watching direct weather to gain information. One time I watched direct weather to see where he went wrong. That's the only time. But yeah, it's gonna get. Remember, I told you late November is when we can start. It can start getting interest in winter wise, and it already has a little bit more, but it's expected to. But so nothing crazy, but we'll have some opportunities to track. We'll have some opportunities to track mid to late November for sure. Let's take a look. The euro. Mid to low 20. Yeah. Even though the warms are surging, I might get into the upper 20s tonight. It was already like 37 at like 8 p.m. last I checked, so we were pretty cold here already, and then this weekend cold's gonna come. Yeah, that's true. So the snow doesn't get all wet and mushy with the snowmaking. Ski season started yet? On any of the Vermont mountains? I'm assuming if it hasn't already, it's starting soon, right? Now in November. Curious, like J Peak or Stratton or any Stowe, any of those places. Hasn't been cold. Yeah, that makes sense. It has been super warm, but it is going to get cold. It is going to get cold. I mean, take a look here. And it's going to get cold. I mean, you can look at all the previous runs you want. This cold is locked in. Oh yeah, I forgot about Killington. Yeah, Killington's popular, so they got demands. maybe if they get lucky, maybe they'll have an actual snow to work with, and then they can set the ground. They can set their floor from there. I mean, if this were to verify, this would be an elevation. This would be an elevation event here. Now I'm just cherry picking the one run, but that shows you a little bit of what's going on there. I mean, that's elevation dependent right there. We get under you'd get under good bands and a higher elevation, you'd be able to kick in there. Just in general, I mean, you can. I don't even have to just the general pattern. I've been watching this one for days now, a couple days now. I've been watching the general changes in the system. I like the pieces on the table for this one. We talked about it last night too with Mark something, one of my followers. Seems to be a good guy. But we were talking about this last night on the stream, and just in general, the pieces are relatively there for something to develop. After this one, right? We're locking in some cold air now at this point, and then wherever we can get after that, and it's going to leave behind some confluence, whatever this. So it's going to be hard to really over amplify this way with the confluence left behind in this system. So whatever happens is probably going to run into a little bit of a wall here, and that's kind of why you see it kind of look all dispersed, and you kind of it looks like there's two lows. Eventually, play this out. We got a low here and low here. When you kind of look at that, kind of runs into a wall. It looks like with that confluence. We have a big time confluence pattern where there's just so much strung out vorticity right now that it's going to be really hard to. It's hard to amplify systems past watch this one. Once we get into Canada, it's really hard to continue amplifying systems. Not that impacts us super a lot, because we don't live in Canada. But notice how this one gets strung out. Next trough gets strung out. Transfer low can't happen because of what? Confluence. Notice how strung out this gets, though. All these systems, once they get past our latitude, are getting super strung out right now with the ridge to the east and then confluence from prior systems. It's making it hard for this to get super amplified, amplification in terms of cutters. Now, instead of just relying on confluence, because eventually with confluence you can maybe get a hit, but typically you just want your HP, your big Greenland high. You want a little bit bigger than that. You just want your big, Greenland high pressure locked in here, and then you can work with that so it can slide around and continue to amplify like that, or something. I mean, a little bit closer, but. Anyway, my point was, if you were asking, transfer can't happen because of confluence. And then transfer, if we looked at that specific run, we can still get that transfer because we're going to have this big southern vort here that's going to be a dominant force, and then it becomes one. We get our phase, we get our stream interaction, and it just struggles. It just struggles to do a complete full phase. It impacts us less because we wouldn't have a shot to get in the best spot to get into a full phase, so it doesn't impact our latitude as much. But these systems have been kind of run into a wall, and this one almost breaks through the confluence. You kind of see that it paves its own way. And also, not only confluence, we have just so much strung out vorticity. So we constantly have vorts that are pushing this and trying and not close enough to get stream interactions, but close enough to shear off and push our systems farther east. So it's a little bit of a complicated pattern that isn't great for just full on, you know, 970, 960 bomb out systems. So it's not exactly the pattern for a lot of those kind of systems right now. And you can kind of see what happens, right? So this trough here, it tries to that we're just don't focus on just focus on the general idea of the stuff I'm describing in the pattern now. Notice how these get separated, just like the old trough got separated as well. This is kicking on it. It's pressing down on it, and this is getting sheared off as well. With ridge confluence from prior systems, it's just we play that out. You notice how it gets separated, and so it's pretty really messy. And there's no guarantee it happens exactly like this, but just in general, based on how it's been going with this system and how it's projected to go, we're getting into a little messy of a pattern here, so it's gonna be hard. It could get pretty hard to try to get a good snowstorm just based on the pattern it's advertised in storms like the GFS, and the Euro is kind of showing something along that lines too. Obviously different, um, but you can kind of see how strung out everything is on the Euro as well. We don't really see anything to be able to just super amplify all the way. You can see how strung out here, right? This has no chance to develop because this is not close enough for a stream interaction, this piece here, and this is just going to work against this piece to get super amplified. We got the pieces on the table. We don't have a really active subtropical vort right now, and that makes sense as well, given that conditions are currently favorable for a tropical system to occur in Florida. So I would say if there's anything we're missing, that's probably it. We're working on a lot of our stuff. We're working on is pieces diving in off the west coast is what we're working as for southern vorts right now. So we don't have a super active subtropical vort. So I would say that's one thing we're kind of missing a little bit, but other than that, there's a lot of things that we can work with to make a snowstorm. But it's a really strung out pattern right now in terms of what we're working with. Yeah, you can see on the CMC Canadian too. Yeah, the pattern. I don't want to say the pattern overall is good because if it was good, we'd be getting much better looks. Um, but we have there's a lot of stuff there that's positive to work with. Just general starting stuff like this right here. This is a. I mean, if we could get just a more sound stream interaction and we could just dip this trough down here and get an upper level low to close off. I mean, not even close off, just strengthen and consolidate. We could look at a snowstorm for this part of the region and where it's not that far off. We're just struggling. We don't have a lot of moisture to kick into this part as well, so it's hard for consolidation without a good southern vort to work with on this system. And so it kind of gets strung out. And so without that southern vort to be able to intensify it really quick, it's going to try to intensify. It will intensify up here, but it's not going to be able to fully close off, and it's just going to strung out like I was talking about, just because of what we're working with. all the pattern, all of our vort pieces are too connected almost right now. There's not enough separation in the pattern. So it wouldn't surprise me if we could get, if there will be a lot of, there probably, my guess is if this kind of pattern unfolds, there won't be a lot of days of sunshine. Won't be a lot of days of sunshine. We went through P-type maps. I guess there wouldn't be a lot of days of sunshine with this kind of pattern. We'd be constantly in and out of systems, but just nothing super favorable to get our in terms of now. There's more leeway. There's more leeway with like here. These places get a little bit more leeway, but if we're talking populated areas in the Northeast, like from not even coastal, just here, there's not a lot to work with. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. Even something to track right now. Just something that I can make a snow map with. Like put a right here. I don't even need to get into it. Just give me something. Give me something where I can make a snow map. I would love to. Love to. You look at ensembles too. I'm not a huge ensemble guy. Um, hey man, Binghamton. I'm telling you, Binghamton. They somehow Binghamton seems to every time for some reason. Binghamton seems to find a way. I don't know what it is about that area, but this area right here, they find a way to get a band every time. Every time. I don't know how to explain it. I do. We just went over it, orographic lift, but they work their way into bands, to good bands that on systems you think they had no business. I remember 2017. I'm telling you, it was supposed to be here. This was supposed to be the jackpot. I remember distinctly in 2017, that was supposed to be the jackpot, and even down, it was farther down, like to here. I'm telling you, it was like Northwest Philly Burbs, December 2020. I still imagine what that would have been like. I'm going to talk about that one in a second. 2017, I remember this was supposed to be the jackpot. This was the jackpot. That freaking band that just set up. And I picked up a foot, and then I just ate sleep for like 6 hours after that and dry slotted, basically. The low got too close. That was a frustrating one. It looked like it was going to be like a foot and a half to 2 feet, like just 48 hours out. March 7th. No. What's it? Oh, it wasn't 2018. It was not 2018. I made out pretty well with all of those. It was freaking 58 inches. Jesus Christ. This one right here, March 14th. When I tell you this area was the jackpot. This was supposed to be the jackpot. Not even freaking close. Look at that orographic lift right there. You can just see that band. It was freaking two to like 20 to 45 inches, I think, out there. I think somewhere got like 4 feet of snow. That was a ridiculous band. That was ridiculous. And then 2020, another example of orographic lift. All right. And then this band just kicked off again in here. This was the reason. This is where the band really got going. But this is where the band rotted. So the band rotted here, and so some of these places are elevated too, and snow ratios were so good. They were so good. All right, it was ridiculous, ridiculous. Some of these places were getting an inch, like still an inch and a half to 2 inches of liquid. I mean, not even that. Some of these places were getting like an inch to an inch and a half of liquid and still picking up like 35, 40 inches of snow. It was ridiculous, the ratios these places were working with. And yeah, I mean, this was just a classic warm air advection event. This was just a WAA, classic warm air advection event with CSI banning. And yeah, this wasn't phenomenal. LP slid off here at like 1,000 millibars max. Never got any stronger than like 1,000 millibars. So I was basically in a feeder band spot where I was just, or actually no, I wasn't even. This was the feeder band spot. This is where the fire hose was, and that's why you can see like the 12 to like the 24-inch totals here in the Hudson Valley. This is underestimated. There were, for some reason, these maps don't like to do the exact totals. That kind of like to make smooth overlays for some reason, not just report the totals that were there. There were a lot more like 18 to 20-inch totals in here than this map shows. This was like the feeder to this band. So if you were in here, you were cooking the whole time. Subsidence, coastal enhancement, and also feeder bands for this band to run out here. I remember I saw 7 inches per hour in that spot right there. 7 inches. Laconia, New Hampshire. I remember the exact town name too from that tweet I saw. Unreal storm. Unreal. So it just goes to show you there's different ways. There's different ways to get massive snowfall totals out of these storms. And I think climate change is playing a small part in that. There's no real stuff to back it up, but with such anomalous, consistent sea surface temperature profiles, maybe not exactly, but off in the Atlantic. I don't know exactly there, but I guarantee if I went and found them right now, I guarantee you that just off the New England coast into the Gulf of Maine, there are anomalous sea surface. Let's find the anomalies right here. Shocker. And it's like it almost hasn't mattered what the pattern is. This has been consistently above that. I mean, obviously there's cold pockets and warm pockets. This area for like, I don't know how far back, even at least the last few years, has been consistently above the averages. And I remember at that time we were really above average with those anomalies. And I can click onto that map here to get a little bit more zoomed in. But this Gulf Stream area has been consistently above average. And it's not a coincidence when we get big troughs here and we're pulling in moisture and we're wrapping it around. And this is able to fire up convection right over all these anomalous, above average, warm sea surface temperature areas. It makes sense. It makes some sense. It's hard to say to what extent. Certainly not hurting these systems at a minimum. We know that. We're consistently back in the flow over these warm water temperatures, sea surface temperatures. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Turbocharge. You're only enhancing this. So there's a bright spot. It's global warming, more fuel for snowstorms. I guess if there is a bright spot, there's one. We get bigger snow bands, but it's also, I mean, I don't even have to explain myself the negatives of global warming, but that was a ridiculous event. And who knows? Who knows? Maybe we'll have another one. I mean, this is immediately. It's not like these just fade away. It's not like these are just going to fade away. And I don't think it's going to be a winter where it's just going to be below average the whole winter in these areas. I don't think it's just going to be like that the whole winter. And I don't know how often it's going to be like any of these winters. I mean, it's not like that every winter, or like any winter. The whole winter isn't like that. But I mean, like just consistent long periods of like 2 to 3 weeks in a row, and then maybe a few days, like a week off, and then 2 to 3 more weeks of cold. I'm just not sure how many more patterns are ever going to be like that. It's going to take anomalous patterns like once or twice a winter, not like 4 or 5 times a winter where it's 2 week plus stretches of, and with maybe a day in between mixed in of just cold winters. Yeah, I don't know exactly, but the more we get closer, the more I'm starting to think somewhere in here is going to make that's like some. When I say, well, like, I think we're going to have an active jet stream. So, depending on where we get our troughs set up, wherever they set up, somewhere I think is going to get into it for multiple, and be able to have multiple big hits. I think there's going to be opportunities for significant snowstorms. Like, I think someone put it out well in their winter forecast, or just winter thoughts. One of the local Mets around here tweeted it. They said they don't think it's going to be and I kind of agreed. I mean, I don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but I kind of agreed just based on what the information I have now. It's not going to be a super cold winter. If anything, it could be above average. But when it snows, it snows. When it comes, there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of snow when these storms come. And I kind of agree with that a little bit. You can never exactly say, but that's where I currently stand with my winter thoughts. I think we're going to have an active jet stream. Based on how November has looked so far, at least in the first half, I think we're gonna have some Miller B opportunities in the first half of the winter. We're gonna have a good amount of Miller B, so we're gonna have a good lot of transfer opportunities. It looks like in the first part of the winter. So if you live in New England or interior Northeast, that's always a good thing. If you live in here though, you don't like transfers. This area does not like transfers, because what happens is you get your upper level low, kind of cook some snow over these regions, and then a transfer occurs, and then the snow takes off in here, and then these winters, and then these places get into it, and then these places get cut out. Any winters it looks comparable to? 2015 was amazing. I wish we could have it. I wasn't doing deep dive analysis of 2015. I wish I had a 2015 to do. I would have got no sleep. No sleep in a 2015. If we have another 2015, I'm not going to get any sleep. Yeah. Yep. What was it? What was the storm? The March 7th, 2018 one. That was a good transfer system. Man, I could use another 2015. I could take another 2018 was a pretty good winter too. We had I remember February was super warm, but yeah, I remember Mitch had like 45 inches on that one too. Well, I wasn't on Twitter at the time, but I remember going when I went back to that storm. I saw one of his tweets, and it was 45 inches of snow or something. It showed up in like the Google search when I looked up that storm. So that was a pretty ridiculous one, where this was, you had like feet of moisture coming in, and this band just set up right over here. Maybe not that big, but yeah, that makes sense. If you're setting the ground early with that snowstorm, that band, and then you just go from there, because the winter in general was a pretty good one, I would say, especially the February, like that, last few days of January into February was really good. That was a really good February. Yeah, Mitch is in a good spot. Mitch is always in a good spot. I remember I did a chase there last year. I don't know if you remember saw me posting it, but I did a chase there last year, right around this time actually, in November. I think it was early mid-November, and I chased some snow, and I was right in next town over, or right by Mitch's backyard almost. What's the highway in Vermont? Is it 89? I can't remember that. I can't remember what's the highway I was on. I remember it sucked. It sucked. They did not do it. The plow barely came by. And I remember I was like almost sliding. I couldn't press my brakes at all. It was like 4 inches or thunder snow, heavy wet snow. One of these. Where was it? No. Why can't I find? Here we go. Man, it was somewhere in here. No, it might have been one of these routes. It might have been like this Route 100 right here. One of these. And I remember it was awful. It was awful driving. It was awful driving on there. Oh, no problem, Aaron. If you're still there. But yeah, it was awful driving conditions. They didn't really seem to plow. It's like 4 four and a half inches of heavy wet snow was not a fun drive. Not a fun drive, to say the least. And it was like a little parking stop. You know, there's a lot of cars next to me too that are just kind of waiting. I'm there just sitting there waiting for the snow. Everybody else is waiting for it to get better. So it was a little bit of a, you know, officers coming by, you know, giving updates. I'll take another 2020, 2021 winter. That was a fantastic winter. To be honest, this winter, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a solid winter. Like I want to be just around average in snowfall. So I want to be around the 65 to 75 inch mark. Around 65 to 70 inches is around the average we get here. So I want to be at least around that 65 to 75 inch mark. But if I can just get that 1 2 footer, I have not had a 2 foot snowstorm since 2015. I've come close. I've had a couple of 20 inches, close to 20 inches. I've had a couple of those. I just have not been able to get a 2 foot snowstorm. And I know that sounds like a lot, but given that where I live, I mean, you'd think in like a 5 year period, you'd have 1 2 foot snowstorm. Like if you live in this region, you gotta think you're gonna get 1 2 foot snowstorm. I have been so close, so close. Like where the next town over gets 2 feet, and I don't get 2 feet. I get like 20 inches. So I'm looking for one of those 24 to 30 inch snowstorms, and honestly, I don't even care if I'm below average after that. If I can just get a couple more good storms. Like I could make do with a 60-inch winter if I can just get that one big one. Like imagine what we had last winter, and instead of that blizzard that man, I wish we could have got on that one, man. That blizzard from last year. I wish we could have had that one. Like if I hit the jackpot on that one. Like I know that winter was not good for like a lot of spots. So like imagine like more widespread snowfall, more events, but for me it was just slightly below average was the winter. So if I can just get last winter in terms of the snowfall events with that like blizzard of 22, and if it did what it was supposed to do, I say supposed to, it wasn't supposed to, but the way it was supposed to in my mind, was we were going to get this upper level low to consolidate consolidate and close off like 3-4 hours earlier. And what was going to happen is that band, we were going to get 700, 850, and 500 to come close to closing off. And what was going to happen, we were going to get a mega band even stronger than the one that happened. And it was just going to pivot. So it was going to either pivot right over me or just close enough where I'm on the edge, and it would have been like 4 feet of snow, legitimately, and that just didn't happen. So I got the same winter as last year, and I could have gotten away with like a 27, 28 inch storm instead of like a 19, 20 inch storm. I would have been happy, and I wasn't even mad with the winter I had last year personally. Because we made it into we had some decent overperformers, you could say, or for me, correctly performed. And in my eyes, take a little bit of credit. But it was not bad at all. I appreciate it. I didn't know we had as many folks as we did in the YouTube chat. Appreciate it. If you got questions about or some of the stuff I talked about, you can feel free to ask too. We're just going. just going over some winter thoughts with couple Twitter folks. But yeah, I could really use a good winter. And personally, I have this is my last winter here specifically, so I got moves moves. I'm staying in the Northeast, but my last winter here, so I want a good one. I want a good one. I want a good winter for sure. It'd be amazing if because the 2021 winter was actually pretty good because we just had such a good amount of moderate events. Where to next? I won't go too far in exactly what's happening, but I'm going to the Finger Lakes. That is my new destination. Lake Geneva, or what is it called? Lake Seneca, Geneva is where I'm going. So that's a good place for snow still. So I'm not too mad. So we're gonna chill right over here. So I'm gonna be in an official interior Northeast resident, at least temporarily. Yeah, yeah. I hopefully I can get into some lake effect snow. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I can maybe get into some good lake effect stuff. Boom, right in the backside of these systems. Get this offshore flow. We can get into some good lake effect bands, hopefully, that can stretch out. And if I have to, when I have time to, maybe chase some. But yeah, I just want, because that 2021 winter, I pulled out, what did I come away with? Let me pull up the data. 2020, I believe it was like 87. Yeah, so it was 87 inches. 87 inches of snow that winter. That was a good winter. That was a good winter. I remember we caught an April snowstorm too, or was it a March snowstorm? 140. Typically, I'd be like, geez, that's a ridiculous amount. But I know you're supposed to get like 100 something inches per year. You know what your close to your average is? Man, we had some good storms that winter. We started out with the October one. We got out to a good start. I got 7.5 inches from that one. And then that December one, I got 16 inches out of that one. I was like the high around here. And then I lost my privileges for some reason for snowfall. Snowfall total. This was the winter I lost for some reason some respect for me. For some reason, the National Weather Service, because I got into the banding too good in too many storms, I jackpotted. I got stripped away. So I had to send him an email to be like, no, I'm not a scammer here. There's actual someone who does this. I know how to forecast. I know how to measure snowfall. Stratton. 180. Jeez. So you're probably what, just a little bit less than that usually, right? I imagine. This might be the peak of Stratton. So maybe like 150, 160 inches you're supposed to get per year. But yeah, and then we had a good late January one. We had 6 inches, and then the next week we got into that. I got 20.5 inches from that February snowstorm. Another 7 piece, another 7 piece, and almost a 5 piece. Oh, is it skewed? Here we go. 104 inches of snow per year. This doesn't look like the Stratton Resort, this like or whatever. It just Stratton, 104 inches. So yeah, it looks like 140. That's a pretty good winter. It's 40% above the average. Man, what I would do for another 87. That was such a good winter, man. We got better analysis too than I did in that winter, so we can get another winter like that. Man, I could do for it. We had a lot of small events though. I'd take away one of those events, one of those 7-inch events, and add it. Take away one of those 7-inch events, some of those smaller ones, and add it to one of those. You get a big 30-inch snowstorm. I don't know if that was it was okay. It was the same day. I put cutoff low in my notes. I put cutoff low April 16th, 4.75 inches, 4.8 inches is what I put in my notes. I forget what event. What event was February 19th? I forget. Oh, we had a couple of snow squall days that winter too. December 5th, we had a 7-inch snowstorm too that winter. What? Just so many a lot of 7-inch events here. 3, 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5. 5 events of 6.25 inches or more, 6 to 7, 6 to 8 inch events. I had 5 of them, and then 6, almost 5 to 8 inch events. You just add those up, and then I had 2 blockbusters. That's how we got to 87 inches. So. I said I was going to look at ensembles. I'm curious what the ensembles. Yeah, let's dig. They backed up a little bit more. They've gone a little bit less positive. The ensembles have. About the EPS. Do I get the EPS? Yeah, there we go. Oh, why is the EPS? That doesn't make any sense. Why does the 18Z go out 90 hours? And this go out 144? Well, what do we want to look for? This is where we want our trough. Even just to get like a little bit of rain and snow in here, and then these boys cash in. We have some wiggle room. Problem is, remember I told you about the pattern? This is going to try to kick this out. So this is going to want to like wait more time to amplify it and struggle to get the southern vort out in front, because it's going to want to push this piece out ahead of the southern vort. Even though it's not a lot to work with, it's going to want to push that out in front. Nicole's still a tropical storm with the 1 a.m. advisory. Oh, if I switch this here to the, let's just switch to the GFS. What we need, I did it from the 18Z run. This was as close as we got. What we need is we need this to dig like here, and even a little bit more than that. We need this to dig just a couple 100 miles more, and then this is still gonna. This would still be rain, but you can still get a not where I wanted to draw that. You could get these areas. You could get farther south and west, and then you could get you get here too. You can get these areas into the snowfall. So we need to. It's funny, like we don't want this to kick this out in front of our southern vort and shunt it off, but also we want to place this a little bit more farther east and dig this a little bit farther south. So that's why I say about 200 miles southeast is what we want to push this. So then we can push our upper level low from here. And the surface low is probably gonna, it's not even, it's too unrealistic to push it that far out. Work something, push the upper level low over the capes. Hopefully we can try to consolidate it more. I mean, I'm really trying to, it's hard. It's hard, but we need to consolidate this a little bit earlier, and the low pressure is going to slide off regardless, just to the east. That's what we're trying to get. Yeah, it can. It's just we don't have a lot to work with the southern vort. I mean, you can look at this. I mean, look at our southern vort right here. Ideally, the best to amp this up, we could somehow get this to get farther into this. I mean, I'm just trying to play Xbox with the atmosphere right now. This is basically what I'm doing. I got the Xbox controller and I'm trying to make things how I want it. So we can get this a little bit out in front. Notice like the stream separation here. You see that in the southern vort? It's not super consolidated. In this look right here, this is where it just doesn't even get a chance to get any of these areas involved. Like that's still in the interior northeast. Yeah, bro, this is like I'm playing Xbox and I got the controls. I got the key to the Tesla right now. If there is even a key to a Tesla, I don't even know. Never driven one before. But see, this is a look right here where this is pumping snow here and here. That's where you get snowfall. So we need to pump this. This is still the 18s. The 0Z is different, so it made it a little bit more complicated. Just get this 200 miles more north, and let's see if we can separate this piece. Get this piece the frick out of here. Either get the frick out of here or help. Right? This is like your friend. You brought your friend over to try to help you do something, but they're just sitting there watching. They're not doing anything. You brought your friend over, like you're moving your house, and your friend's just sitting there not helping at all, just making it harder for you because he's like talking to you and wasting your time, and then he's not even helping. So either help move these boxes, or just leave. Get the frick out of here. That's what we want this piece to do right here. Because this, notice how sharp, like we like sharp troughs, but this is hurting it in this case. We want the angle of this trough. If we were going to get this angle, we want to push this like 200 miles like east. So we want this to get a little bit more, we want a little bit more of an angle like that instead of here. But yeah, that's what we need. That's what we need to do. We need this piece. We need to angle it a little bit more, like not positive, but we need. It's too sharp. This is being cut off. This is being restricted right now. This piece is having a negative impact on this system. It's not only this is preventing our southern vort from consolidating as well, because it's kind of shearing off our system. It's not allowing, even though we're negatively tilted, it's still struggling to consolidate our vorticity northward here. We want to pull this in more. See how disorganized it was on this run, like how much convection was wasted to the southeast on this. Like, you see how much is just wasted? This is all just wasted. And this is maybe a little bit of convective feedback, but this is just wasted. We want to consolidate this more and earlier. And this piece back here is not helping. Thinks it's helping. It's not helping. Well, it doesn't think anything. It just is. But you get my point. Yeah, it goes back to what I was talking about, two-string heavy pattern. It goes back to what I was talking about. It's just it's not a perfect pattern right now. And it's not even a perfect pattern. It's not even a great pattern. Just because of how strung out everything is. Just see how it's too connected, everything. It's too connected. We want pieces to connect, but only to a certain extent. Everything's too connected right now. We don't want it disconnected. We want enough separation in between storms so they can have air to breathe and do their own thing. And you can see this gets way too connected. This back here is connected. This here is way too connected. There's too much going on. There's too much going on in either side of these systems right now to give these storms enough time to breathe and amplify. Like here, this storm, we don't even get snow until the last patch of northern Maine here. Take a look here at the PTAT map. You're not even getting snow until then. And it doesn't even have time to consolidate. Look, that's barely anything. I don't think this doesn't do it justice. If this were to be like this, you get some snow to kick out on here on that upper level, on that 500 look. I don't agree with that surface map. Look at that. Look at that 500 look right there. Little snake tongue action. Yeah, you get some good snow there in Oklahoma. But look at this even. Look at our southern vort. So like we want pieces to phase. But like we could do just fine with the southern vort. We could make a system out of the southern vort. There's just this piece is going to be just a cluster F. I try to limit. We try to keep it PG-13 here. So that right, we get this, but look, coming in behind it, just never can. This piece says, screw it, I'm coming in, and messes with this. This is the most scientific thing you can do. This little scribble right here. It shows great intelligence, in my opinion. Great intelligence, in my opinion. But yeah, so it's like it's good. We can make do. We can make something out of this, but it's not going to be easy, especially given climatology. Now, if you're going to get anything out of this too, you know I don't even want to draw. Don't even get me close to the Southern Hudson Valley. It's these are the folks that are favored right now. These are the folks that are favored right now. If anyone's going to get snow in November, these guys got the best shot. Now again, given placement, stuff can change. That's why we can't rely on bad placement here. We can't we're not even going to try to circle the coast. So we're going to take out the coast. Like this quarter here cannot rely on bad placement, or I shouldn't say rely. These locations can't have bad placement with the 500 low, with the upper level low. These places cannot rely on bad placement. They need classic tracks right now. They need classic tracks in order to get snowfall. Without a big dome of high pressure sitting over, and given the current pattern, we need perfect. It's like lucking out. It's like imagine there's that little thing where you drop something down into it, and then it's like almost looks like a pinball machine, and then the ball goes certain way if there's structure and there's organization. So no matter what, there's like 5 or 6 slots at the bottom of this thing that kind of looks like a pinball machine a little bit, and then you drop the ball in or something, and it has to go one certain direction. This is like, imagine you take all that stuff out, then you just drop the ball, and wherever it goes, and you gotta just hope. If that made any sense, that's kind of where these places have to rely on. Little bit more leeway with these folks, and then wherever terrain is, there's a little bit more leeway. Just because of elevation and location. Otherwise, it's going to be too difficult. Too difficult. All right. I think we'll call it a stream. Appreciate everyone that came in. We'll try to do another stream tomorrow night. But until then, we'll leave it at that. Appreciate everyone that came in.